I'm sure you've all seen really cool composite photographs where a photographer takes different elements from different photos and puts them all together in the same photograph and makes a really cool scene out of it. And the first step that you need to take when you do things like that is to properly extract your subjects from their backgrounds. And your first instinct is to use either Photoshop's own extraction tools like the refine mask tools or maybe some plugin. And you've probably gotten really frustrated when you've gotten to smooth parts of your artwork because it tends to make the smooth edges not so sharp and it makes them transparent and you have all kinds of problems with it. Works good for hair a lot of times, but for smooth lines or curved lines or things where you need a sharp edge, what you're really going to want to use is the pen tool. Now the pen tool has been part of the Photoshop toolbox forever, and real graphic artists know how to use this thing and they use it every day. And it's a really good tool to know. You really have to know this to be a pro and to make a really nice composite. So I have here a photo that's done by my good friend Ryan Estes, and he took this at a cookout years ago. And here's his plug down the bottom here, and a couple of my other friends were with me, Joy and Jackie. And I really like this photo. There's some distracting parts about it, and some nice parts. I'd like to extract the distractions and maybe leave in the most beautiful part of the photo. And for this, since I don't have a lot of hair to deal with and it's mostly smooth lines, I'm going to go and use my pen tool. Now the pen tool works like this. We're going to zoom in here. I like to zoom in more than 100%. And push P for pen. Now here's my pen tool. I just start by making a path. And I'm going to start with a single point. I'm going to make it right there. And I could just make a dot to dot around it, but you see it's not really making a nice smooth line. I need a curved line here. I can make more dots along here, and the more dots I make, the smoother it will be. But what the pen tool is really great for is what's called making a Bezier path. Now a Bezier path is a curved path. So if I place a second dot here and drag, now I'm getting a nice shape that's matching the shape of the ear I want to mask out. Now if I drag this thing, I could change the shape of that path, but as you can see here, I'm just dragging along and dragging the end points, the handles, until it sort of just matches where I want to be, just inside the border of this ear. And I'll let go. And then I could take a second one. I could drag that also. Oh, but look what happened. That was kind of weird. Look, I made this funky looking path, so I'm going to go back and delete that. I'm going to hold down my Alt key, and I want to change the curve. I want to hold down the Alt key and click on that point. It deletes its endpoint. So now I'm basically starting fresh again. So it's not going to take this other path into consideration when I draw a new path, or actually a new segment to that path. So I could drag, and now it's making a pretty smooth curve. And I could just continue to do this all along my artwork. And when I have to change directions, like I need to come out here, there's a little bulge here I want to maintain, so I deleted the endpoint and started a new one. Oops. And there's the ear. Now I want to change directions again. Now if I were to just make a new point, it would again make that funky looking curve, which I don't want. So I'm going to hold down my Alt key, delete that endpoint. Now I can come down here. This is pretty much a straight line down at the collar. Drag and just curve it inwards a little bit. Delete that. And I'm going to keep going. This one is pretty much straight. This is a little hump here, so I could do that. Now since I'm going to be changing directions again, I'm going to delete that endpoint. And I'm going to come around here and finish that up. Now I'm at the edge of my photograph. I'm just going to basically just click anywhere outside. Now I can come back in again. Click and drag. clicking and dragging. I'm trying to stay just inside of my artwork. That's gonna keep me from getting a fringe. If I go too far outside, I'm gonna get maybe a color fringe because it's gonna pick up something from the background that I don't want. But this is going to make a nice sharp line, which is just what we want. Delete, and one more around the collar, and delete that one. Now I'm changing directions. I'm back on the face again, keeping just inside. I'm going to leave my endpoint. Now the less points you can put down, the smoother your curve is going to be. So I'm going to try to make this whole curve with just another endpoint here. So maybe curve it a little bit. It looks like that that matched pretty good. Okay, go around the ear again, another ear. Everyone's got two, hopefully. Now I don't have to delete the endpoint every time, but every time I change directions, there's sort of a little cut in here, so I need to come back out. And then I'm going to change directions again. Oops. I'll change directions. Now we got another big curve here. And I want to make sure that stays inside the bounds here. And I could drag this other handle by holding control down. This is on a PC. Now I don't know what I think there's another word for it on the Mac. I'm just going to drag that in. I can work these two handles independently by holding control down. Let's make a real nice curve. I could probably get this in one curve here. Ah, that curve's looking good. This curve's not, so I'm going to drag this handle out a little more. Maybe get a little closer. There it is. You can always come back later and drag any one of these points. Oops. Let's see. If you ever start making a real funky line, you could just delete the endpoints and start over again. It usually gives you a pretty good chance to save your path. If you ever have to delete a point, you can go back to the pen tool, and there's a delete anchor point tool. So if you really screw up and you just want to delete that anchor point altogether, you just start over again. Put down a new point. Now we're coming to the end of our path. And when you see when I put my cursor over the original starting point, it turns back into a little circle. And that's telling the path that it's done. So if you go over to your palettes, your path palette, you'll notice you have a path called a work path. Now this work path is temporary. If you want to save this along with your PSD file, you want to double click on that and name it. Now when I save my PSD file, it'll save that path. Otherwise, it's just a temporary path. So if I zoom back out, you'll see that I have a path. If I hold control down and click on it, you'll see that I have my little marching ants. And it's going to make a nice sharp line around this beautiful head. But what I like to do, though, I don't want it to be super duper sharp where it looks like it's cut out with scissors. So I like to go to the select menu, and I do this for all my paths, and I go to modify and contract. I'm going to contract by just 1 pixel. It's going to bring that path in a little bit, and what that's going to do, it's going to make sure that I'm not picking up any pixels outside of where I want to be. Because again, that'll give me a color fringe, and I don't want to do that. And then I'll go back to select again and feather half a pixel. That'll soften it up just a tiny, tiny bit. So I have my selection now on my layer. My layer is selected. And if I hit the mask icon, bing, it makes a really nice cutout. Now, if you look at it close up, you can see it looks pretty natural. I'm not getting any fringing. And again, I don't have to deal with any transparent pixels around the edge here. If I was using one of those masking programs, I would tend to get some, at least a little bit of fringing and maybe transparent pixels around the edge I'd have to deal with later. But this is, I was going a little slower than need be for this demonstration, but this is pretty fast technique. Now you can put in any background you like. And there it is. You could take this now and put it into a composite, or I could add some more things to this background. And there's the beginning of my composite. Now this doesn't address the problem with people with hair, and we'll do that in a later tutorial.